Did you know that nearly 40% of Americans now identify as independents, showing a growing dissatisfaction with the traditional two-party system? Or that the average voter's impact on public policy is only 0.0005%? These eye-opening facts highlight just how crucial it is to understand party platforms and make informed decisions. Welcome to our deep dive into political party platforms. In a world where campaign promises often fall short and hidden agendas lurk behind flashy slogans, knowing how to choose the right political alignment can be tricky. But it's more important than ever. In this video, we'll peel back the layers of party ideologies and explore how these platforms really work. You'll discover the truth behind campaign promises versus reality, the power of grassroots movements, and the role of independent candidates in shaping our political landscape. We'll also look at emerging trends and what they mean for the future of politics. Whether you're new to political discussions or looking to deepen your understanding, this guide will equip you with the knowledge to navigate the complexities of party platforms and make decisions that truly reflect your values. Stay tuned as we uncover the secrets behind political platforms and how they impact our world. Chapter 1: Unmasking Party Ideologies, Beyond Left and Right. When we think about political parties, we often simplify them into left or right. But there's so much more beneath the surface. For instance, did you know that the concept of the left-right political spectrum originated from the French Revolution? The more radical deputies sat on the left, while the conservative ones sat on the right. Digging deeper, let's explore how cultural factors play a role. Take the US, where the Democratic and Republican parties have evolved significantly over time. Democrats, once the party of the Southern conservatives, transformed into a champion of civil rights by the mid-20th century. On the other hand, Republicans, who once fought against slavery, are now seen as the party of traditional values. Understanding these shifts helps us see that party ideologies are not static. They change with society's values. A unique fact is that about 40% of Americans identify as independents, showing a significant shift from strict party loyalty. Now, let's talk about core values. Republicans often emphasize individual responsibility and free market capitalism. Democrats, meanwhile, focus on social equality and government intervention in the economy. But it's not just about what they say, it's also about what they do. Policies like the Affordable Care Act reflect democratic values, aiming to provide health care for all. Conversely, tax cuts under Republican leadership often aim to stimulate economic growth by putting more money back into people's pockets. Books like The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt can give us deeper insights. Haidt suggests that our moral foundations shape our political views. For instance, if you value fairness and care, you might lean left. If you value loyalty and authority, you might lean right. But there's more. Some parties prioritize environmental issues. The Green Party, for instance, places climate change at the forefront of their platform. This focus on green policies is becoming increasingly important as we face global environmental challenges. Interestingly, European countries have multiple parties representing various ideologies, unlike the US's two-party system. This diversity allows for a broader representation of views and can lead to more collaborative governance. Understanding these ideologies helps us make informed choices. It's not just about picking a side, it's about finding a party that aligns with your values. And remember, these values can evolve. As society changes, so do the parties that represent us. Chapter 2: Hidden Agendas, What Politicians Don't Tell You. Ever wonder what's really behind a politician's promises? It's time to uncover the hidden agendas. Politicians often paint rosy pictures, but the reality can be quite different. For instance, a study from Princeton University found that the preferences of the average American have a minuscule impact on public policy. Instead, the wealthy and business interests hold significant sway. Lobbying is a major player here. In 2020, over $3.5 billion was spent on lobbying in the US alone. This money buys influence, shaping policies in favor of those who can afford it. For example, the pharmaceutical industry spends millions to influence healthcare legislation, often resulting in higher drug prices for consumers. Political donations also play a role. Candidates often rely on big donors to fund their campaigns. This reliance can lead to policies that favor these donors over the general public. For instance, tax breaks for the wealthy are a common outcome of such influence. Let's talk about policy compromises. Politicians may start with bold promises, but compromises often dilute these policies. Take climate change legislation. Initial proposals might aim for drastic emissions cuts, but lobbying from the fossil fuel industry can weaken these measures significantly. Books like Dark Money by Jane Mayer highlight how hidden financial networks shape our politics. Mayer reveals how billionaires use their wealth to promote their agendas, often without public scrutiny. Here's a unique quote from the book: "A network of exceedingly wealthy people, overwhelmingly white men, had been quietly pooling their vast resources. This network has a profound impact on policy, often without us knowing. It's also worth noting that politicians sometimes hide their true intentions. They might support a policy publicly but work against it behind closed doors. This duplicity can mislead voters and obscure the real motivations. One way to uncover these hidden agendas is to follow the money. Websites like opensecrets.org track political donations and lobbying expenditures. These resources can reveal who's funding a politician and what they might expect in return. Another strategy is to look at voting records. Politicians may say one thing during campaigns but vote differently once in office. By examining their records, we can see if their actions align with their words. Chapter 3: Party Promises versus Reality, Tracking Campaign Lies. Political campaigns are full of promises. But how often do politicians actually keep them? A study by the University of California found that only 67% of campaign promises are fulfilled. This gap between promise and reality is crucial to understand. One common strategy is to overpromise during campaigns. Politicians know that big promises can win votes. Take the example of the "no new taxes" pledge, famously broken by President George H.W. Bush. He promised no new taxes, but later had to raise them due to economic pressures. Tracking these promises can be tricky. Websites like PolitiFact and FactCheck.org do a great job of holding politicians accountable. For example, PolitiFact rated over 500 promises made by President Obama. They found that 48% were kept, while 28% were compromised. Books like The Promise, by Jonathan Alter give us deeper insights into these dynamics. Alter explores how President Obama navigated between his promises and the realities of governance. He states, "The presidency is no place for idealists." Let's look at a unique case, Brexit. The Leave campaign promised that exiting the EU would save the UK £350 million a week. This claim was widely debunked but played a key role in the referendum's outcome. The actual process of Brexit proved far more complex and costly. Another example is healthcare reform. Many politicians promise to overhaul the system, but real change is slow. The Affordable Care Act, for instance, faced numerous challenges and compromises before becoming law. Voter expectations also play a role. Politicians are aware that failing to deliver can cost them re-election. Yet, the complex nature of governance often forces them to backtrack. For instance, President Trump promised to "drain the swamp," but lobbying remained influential throughout his tenure. Books like The Audacity of Hope, by Barack Obama reveal the personal struggles politicians face. Obama wrote, "I serve as a blank screen on which people of vastly different political stripes project their own views." This highlights how varied expectations can lead to disappointment. Data shows that economic conditions heavily influence promise fulfillment. A strong economy allows for more generous policies, while downturns necessitate cuts. For example, the Great Recession forced many leaders to abandon their social spending pledges. Chapter 4: Grassroots Movements, The Power of Local Politics. Local politics might seem less glamorous than national elections, but grassroots movements hold immense power. Did you know that the civil rights movement, one of the most significant social changes in the US, started at the local level? Grassroots efforts can drive significant change. A great example is the environmental movement. Local activists often spearhead initiatives that later become national policies. Take the case of plastic bag bans. San Francisco was the first major city to ban plastic bags in 2007. Now, several states have followed suit. Books like Rules for Radicals, by Saul Alinsky provide strategies for effective grassroots organizing. Alinsky wrote, "Change means movement. Movement means friction." This quote underscores the importance of local activism in driving change. One strategy is community organizing. By rallying local support, activists can push for changes that reflect their community's needs. For example, Flint, Michigan, saw significant activism to address its water crisis. Local efforts brought national attention and led to policy changes. Another powerful strategy is leveraging local elections. Local officials often have a direct impact on day-to-day life. School boards, city councils, and mayors can implement changes that affect education, policing, and housing. In fact, about 30% of Americans voted in local elections in 2019, showing the potential for greater influence. Books like The Revolution Will Not Be Funded highlight how grassroots movements can operate independently of major funding. These movements rely on community support and volunteer efforts to drive change. Data shows that local activism can lead to higher voter turnout. Communities with active local movements often see increased engagement in both local and national elections. This engagement is crucial for a healthy democracy. Another interesting fact is the role of social media. Platforms like Twitter and Facebook allow local movements to gain broader visibility. The #MeToo movement, for instance, started as a grassroots effort and quickly became a global phenomenon. Understanding the power of local politics helps us see the impact of our actions. Supporting local candidates and initiatives can lead to meaningful change. For example, electing a progressive district attorney can reform local criminal justice practices. Chapter 5: Independent Minds, Breaking the Two-Party Mold. When we think about politics, it's usually in terms of Democrats and Republicans. But what about the independents and third-party candidates? These voices can offer fresh perspectives and challenge the status quo. Independents make up a significant portion of the electorate. According to a 2020 Gallup poll, 41% of Americans identified as independents. This shows a growing dissatisfaction with the traditional two-party system. One strategy to understand is the impact of independent candidates. Ross Perot, for example, garnered 19% of the popular vote in the 1992 presidential election. Though he didn't win, his campaign highlighted issues like the national debt that major parties were ignoring. Books like Third Parties in America by Stephen J. Rosenstone offer insights into the role of third parties. Rosenstone writes, "Third parties often articulate new ideas and policies that are later adopted by the major parties." Another strategy is to look at the local level. Independent candidates often have more success in local elections. For example, Bernie Sanders started his political career as an independent mayor of Burlington, Vermont, before becoming a U.S. Senator. Unique ideas also come from third parties. The Libertarian Party, for instance, emphasizes individual freedom and minimal government intervention. The Green Party focuses on environmental issues and social justice. These parties introduce new policy discussions and push the major parties to address them. Data shows that third parties can influence election outcomes. In the 2000 presidential election, Ralph Nader, running as a Green Party candidate, received about 2.7% of the vote. Some argue that this split the liberal vote, affecting the election's outcome. Books like Spoiling for a Fight by Micah L. Safrai explore the impact of third-party candidates. Safrai discusses how these candidates can be spoilers, but also how they bring important issues to the forefront. One strategy for independents is coalition building. By forming alliances with like-minded groups, they can amplify their impact. For example, independent Senator Angus King often caucuses with Democrats, giving him more influence in the Senate. Unique quotes can offer inspiration. Theodore Roosevelt, who ran as a Progressive Party candidate in 1912, said, "The most practical kind of politics is the politics of decency." This reflects the idea that independents can elevate the political discourse. Chapter 6: Future Forecast, Emerging Trends in Party Platforms. As we look to the future, it's clear that party platforms will continue to evolve. New issues and technologies are shaping the political landscape in unexpected ways. Understanding these trends can help us anticipate the direction of party policies. One emerging trend is the focus on climate change. As the effects of global warming become more apparent, both major parties are being forced to address environmental issues more seriously. According to a 2021 Pew Research survey, 60% of Americans say climate change is a major threat. Books like The Uninhabitable Earth by David Wallace Wells highlight the urgency of addressing climate change. Wallace Wells writes, "It is worse, much worse, than you think." This sense of urgency is pushing climate policies to the forefront of party platforms. Another trend is the impact of technology on politics. The rise of social media has changed how campaigns are run and how policies are communicated. Data analytics and targeted advertising are now key strategies in reaching voters. A unique fact is the role of artificial intelligence in politics. AI can analyze voter behavior and predict election outcomes with increasing accuracy. This technology is becoming an essential tool for modern campaigns. Books like The Age of Surveillance Capitalism by Shoshana Zuboff discuss the ethical implications of these technologies. Zuboff warns, surveillance capitalism unilaterally claims human experience as free raw material. This highlights the need for policies that protect privacy and regulate data use.